Well, good afternoon and welcome back to the Euroformula Open Championship. And for the first time, of course, since we went through August, of course, we're now back racing again with the sun shining here at the Red Bull Ring in the heart of the Styrian Mountains around this 4.326 mile or kilometre circuit even, translating of course to 2.688 miles as we now take a look across the skies. The rainfall that hit us yesterday has now dissipated, the humidity has shrunk, 21 degrees in the air, track temperature standing at 26 degrees as well. Perfect conditions for some single-seater racing. And in terms of the championship, well, that's in good condition as well, because Timo Kacharczyk sits on top of the tree at the moment, 17 points clear of Yevon David, but that gap can be closed up in a mere moment. All it takes is one mistake. Michael Shin also a point behind Yevon David. A three-car fight as we're currently looking at it over the lead of the championship. Timo Kacharczyk on a grand run. Obviously, Paul Ricard lit up for him a victory in the first race, followed up by a third and a second. He touched all steps on the podium at France, and also has taken an unsurmountable number of pole positions, taken through the course of qualifying, of course, with a pole at Portimao, a pole at Hockenheim, a pole at Budapest, and a pole at Paul Ricard, and also has taken pole here at Red Bull Ring, standing on the front row and looking, or should I say Michael Shin starting on the front row on pole. We'll explain now, because I have got Chris Stevens with me. George Morgan here, of course, your commentator, Chris Stevens alongside. Chris, some explaining to do.
Yes, so Kacharczyk fastest in qualifying, but starting fourth on the grid. That is owing to a three-place grid penalty. And apologies for not bringing this information to you sooner during qualifying, but he's been found guilty of testing here 2 months ago, which is a big no-no in lower categories. And so it's specifically regarding the same team, driver and circuit combination before we visit them for our official calendar. And BVM Racing with Timo Kacharczyk were testing at this track in June, and so that is why Kacharczyk has been slapped with a three-place grid penalty for this race.
Yeah, of course, Kacharczyk was, of course, fastest in qualifying this morning, but obviously due to the infringement of extra testing out on the track, now obviously forfeiting the pole to Michael Shin. Yevon David on the front row, and we'll be joining Michael Shin here in this instance and looking to claw back some of the points against Kacharczyk at the moment. That's still going to be tough to do, though, because Kacharczyk is still on that second row alongside Diego Della Torre, so it's not over yet.
He does still get the pole position point, and in terms of our race 3 reverse grid, which of course is taken from qualifying, he will still start 6th for that one, the top 6 reversed. So that, of course, it does promote Michael Shin and Yevon David.
That's probably that's probably the one negative out of the whole thing, is that he will be starting P6. Had he actually they recorded the 4th as where he started, then he would have actually had a better race start position.
But this was a problem in F2 for a while, wasn't it, where people got grid penalties and ended up benefiting for the next race because of the reverse grid, which is nonsense. So we've done it properly. So he's going to be out there on what should be, if not a brand new set, or effectively a new set. Just gathering on how everybody ran their qualifying session, Kacharczyk only scrubbed that first set of tyres, so he's effectively got new tyres for all the races. Two brand new sets and one lightly scrubbed one that shouldn't make that much of a difference. Nielsen Racing only used one set of tyres. They've started qualifying with a used set, one they're not going to carry over, and so they will have new tyres for all the races. And for this race, the top 2, Michael Shin and Yevon David, are starting on brand new tyres, as you'd expect given where they're starting.
Yeah, South Korean Michael Shin starting on the front row of the grid, and also on pole position as well as we're looking at it, obviously off the back of the Timo Kacharczyk penalty. He'll be joined by Yevon David, though. The bat will rise, as he has often said as well, and has secured his F3 seat for the future as well. Big credit to Yevon David for that, and representing the nation of Sri Lanka very well indeed. Looking to try and clamber back to the top of the championship. It's going to take a few more than just one race, I think, to make that happen this weekend. But Diego Della Torre could also be an imposing force on this order. Various times he has been in amongst the top 4 placings. He was actually 3rd place back at Spa-Francorchamps race 1, his first podium of the season. Timothy Kaharczyk there waiting on the grid as well. Will have a little bit of work to do, more work than perhaps he intended. Obviously now that he's starting on the second row. Jose Garfias back at the track where he made his Euroformula Open debut, of course, this time last year. Has already made an F3 appearance and maybe some efforts in IndyCar in the future, maybe in Indy NXT or Indy Pro in the near future. We'll wait and see. Obviously talking about IndyCar, we now move to an American driver. Everett Stack will be joining him, P6 as well on the grid with Alessandro Famolaro, of course, in his first start this season, the man from Venezuela, starting in 7th place for BVM Racing and looking to get a good start in his Euroformula career.
Yeah, the 16-year-old... the 22-year-old Venezuelan, having raced in Euro Cup 3 this year. Ed Pearson, 8th on the grid, was very unhappy with himself after qualifying, made a mistake running through the gravel on his, what was going to be his fastest lap, so a bit of work for him to do there. A goal for this race is get himself inside the top 6 to benefit from that race to reverse grid. Now, quite a few new faces. We've seen Famularo already. Vișorinu was another, starting in 9th position, the 16-year-old Romanian in his first Formula 3 level race. We just saw Francesco Soldevini as well for Nielsen Racing. And Ricardo Baptista. No, not that one. It's his son, Kadji, as he likes to be called, and that's what we're going to call him to avoid confusion. The Brazilian coming out of F4 Brazil. Only his second race weekend in Europe for Baptista, so a very steep learning curve for the youngster.
Yeah, Paolo Brajnik, of course, sitting on the back of the grid as well. Well, we can now take a look back at Paul Ricard, and indeed it was quite a busy start to race 1 as well. Great start though for Timothy Kaharczyk. Yevon David also getting a solid getaway. Fernando Barrichello, of course, was watching right in the wheel tracks as well, just waiting for his chance to strike. Unfortunately, it didn't come. Jose Garfias was also up inside the top 4 as well. Collision with Michael Shin, though, who was looking to try and get closer inside the championship classification. That came to a very fast end out off the back of the crash coming through Scene Corner. In the closing stages of race 1. Eventually, it would go the way of Timothy Kaharczyk, though. Victory once again for the pole as he looked to continue his rise in the championship. Race 2 then got underway, and it would be BVM that would lead right from the get-go. Of course, not necessarily the car that you might have expected. A collision, though, for Yevon David, who lost his front wing after coming side-by-side and then colliding with Jose Garfias. And also, Fernando Barrichello was kept busy trying to make his way through the order, eventually managed to finding his place to the checkered flag in yet another win, and his first win in a long, long time. And of course was a winner, funny enough, at this track at Austria as well. Race 3 got underway. Great start for Jose Garfias at the inside past the BVM car. Later on, it was, of course, Yevon David on the rise. Again, he would make contact here at Paul Ricard, sending him spiralling off the circuit. And then Michael Shin in a second upset this weekend as well, fresh off the back of what happened in race 1. Though as we made our way in towards the closing stages, it would be Jose Garfias who would take the checkered flag and victory at Paul Ricard. This is how the Drivers' Championship now looks. Timothy Kaharczyk on 230 points, 17 clear of Yevon David, with Michael Shin in third as well, ahead of Jose Garfias. Garfias 37 points behind Kaharczyk at the moment. Fernando Barrichello, who's not here this weekend, is of course racing in Formula 3 and is 50 points back. Well, we are now set to go racing again here at Austria Red Bull Ring. Michael Shin will start on pole position alongside Yevon David on the front row. Diego Della Torre lines up in third on the second row alongside Timothy Kaharczyk as well. Further back, we then see Jose Garfias back again at the race where it all began. Everett Stack in 6th, ahead of Alessandro Famolaro, the Venezuelan, alongside Ed Pearson of Nielsen Racing. P9 for Luca Vișorinu for Team Motor Park. Your lineup alongside also newcomer Francisco Soldevini, the Argentinian representing Nielsen Racing. Cardi Baptista lines up for Nielsen in 11th alongside Paolo Brajnik, who's representing the Gold Club Cup class. As we're now getting set to go again, the grid now peel off for the formation lap. Yevon David was slightly sharper leaving the line there this time around. Obviously David now obviously aware that he's ahead of Timothy Kaharczyk. Obviously he's not out of the woods though, because he has got Michael Shin for company, Chris.
He certainly does. A good opportunity for Shin and David to try and claw back some of those points, which is quite a healthy advantage. 27 points that Timic Kharchek has in the point standing. So more than, well, actually exactly what you can get in a weekend between fastest lap points and sorry, excuse me, my math is all over the place. 17 points, sorry, so within a win's worth, but yeah, nonetheless, still quite a good advantage. It's, you know, it's more than a podium's worth. So it's a good opportunity for Shin and David to try and claw back some of those points. Kharchek obviously has got to keep it clean. Now, because we've got so many rookies on the grid, Euroformula rookies, not just rookie class drivers, but, you know, drivers who've never raced this car before, Famularo, Vicharinu, Soldovini and Baptista. Hopefully they've all had an opportunity to practice the start enough times that we're not going to get any stallers on the grid. It seems to be a sort of running gag that you're new to the championship, you've got to have at least one stall in your first weekend, otherwise you're not a Euroformula driver properly just yet. And keep an eye on that man Everett Stack as well. He was on for a front row grid spot before running wide through the final couple of corners and making a little bit of a mistake there. He's got pace to come as the American.
Yep, definitely has a lot of promise. Was actually pretty rapid around Spa, if I remember, in certain races. Took 10 points in race 1, though did have better results at Budapest, especially after coming 3rd in race 1 on that occasion. That is, of course, his best result of the season so far. So 1 podium against his name, as now Michael Shin moves up towards the top spot on the grid, joined immediately by Sri Lankan Yevon David. In behind, of course, David will be Timic Kharchek. He'll be lined up alongside Diego Della Torre, who starts 3rd. And, yeah, a very aggressive line taken by Yevon David. Etton Simmons, of course, former driver of DriveX, who raced in the Euroformula Open a few years ago. His last appearance being back in 2022 at Barcelona. And great to see him back again, only this time a driver coach here and now, as we await the marshal to wave the green flag behind the scenes, and the drivers will wait pensively to go racing once again. Fresh after the summer break, they'll blow the cobwebs away and maybe blow the minds of the spectators as well, as they often do in the Euroformula Open Championship. They put pedal to the metal, and it's go, 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 go. Great start for Diego Della Torre, and immediately pounces to the lead now so far, but it's 3 wide now between the championship contenders. Timic Kharchek, though, might have been mugged here right from the get-go, as Jose Garfias moves in front of him instead. It is Diego Della Torre, after a very rapid getaway, ahead of Michael Shin. Yevon David down in 3rd as well. Enter as well, Timic Kharchek in behind, looking to try and close up on Garfias. They're going to go wheel to wheel on the run up through towards turn 3 at Remus. A lock up from Yevon David. A look at the inside from the number 9 of Everett Stack. Kharchek in danger of losing yet another place, and Garfias surpassing Yevon David on the run down towards Slosh Gold. So an immediate change inside the top 4, as now Diego Della Torre comes under fire from Michael Shin, who looks around the outside coming through to Slosh Gold. Once again, Yevon David toe to toe and off into the gravel, and off goes Diego Della Torre, Yevon David as well, and it looks like Michael Shin has retained the lead back.
Yeah, well, it was all kicking off down at turn 4, wasn't it? So Michael Shin now leads. We had a stall on the grid, which was the second BVM car of Alessandro Famularo, the Venezuelan, not going anywhere off the line, but thankfully no one ran into him. And that's split up the pack there a little bit. So it's Michael Shin that leads. Jose Garfias in 2nd place. Big moment there for Everett Stack, not unlike the one he had in qualifying. That's lost him a place to one of the Nielsen cars, which would be Ed Pearson, which should be moving him up into 5th position. Into 5th position. So it's Michael Shin who leads 1.1 seconds over Jose Garfias, who's now in 2nd place after that moment for Diego Della Torre at turn 4. Kharchek now 5th, and well ahead of Yevon David, who's now down in 8th position. Kharchek trying to make that 4th now as he runs side by side with the Motorpark car of Diego Della Torre into turn 3, but nothing doing when he gets down there. So it's Pearson just behind them, then Stack, Vicharinu, David, Baptista, Soldovini, the top 10.
Yeah, Looking for that move for third was Timek Kaharczyk. Diego Della Torre holding on to it for now. Ed Pearson still in fifth, only 3/10 behind Kaharczyk though at the moment. Still plenty up for grabs here so far. Nielsen Racing still with an opportunity here to levy their points in their favour. Visharanu obviously stuck behind Everett Stack at the moment. 5/10 between those two at the moment, with Yevon David 1.6 back after that little error heading into the gravel trap. He's now on a recovery mission, and all of a sudden it's thrown more into the favour of Kaharczyk at the moment. Soldovini moves past Baptista and into ninth place as they now look to bring an end to this next lap now. Another look down the inside from Kaharczyk as they head through towards the final two quarters. Diego Della Torre is going to have his best defensive wits about him, because Kaharczyk can really find the answer. We know that he has had a little bit of prior driving experience of this circuit, hence the penalty he received at the start of the race. But now, with only 3 cars in front of him, separating him away from the race lead, he's got a great chance as they fly through out of turn 1 at Niki Lauda curve. The uphill climb now arrives. Here comes Kaharczyk on the tail, this time of Diego Della Torre, and taking the run up through towards turn 3. We'll look to find the answer here at Remus Corner. He's got the ideal inside line as well. This could be textbook here from Kaharczyk, and it almost certainly is. But back on the up and under, Diego Della Torre looking for the run, and he might yet challenge back. And we've got a car off. That's the 27 of Cardi Baptista, who's now, unfortunately, he's coasted off the circuit. He's next to the barrier. Wheel to wheel again between Diego Della Torre and Kaharczyk, and back through around the outside goes Diego Della Torre, and he returns into P3.
So yellow flags waving at turn 10 as a result of that. Kaharczyk having a look down the inside at Della Torre going into turn 6, but nothing doing when they got down there. Oh, David into the gravel again. This time the right-hand side tyres going in there between 6 and 7. Not been an ideal day for Yevon David, and of course from 8th position he wouldn't be benefiting from the race 2 reverse grid, so he's got to try and gather up a couple of positions at the very least. And let's see if the yellow flag's still down here. Can't actually see where Baptista's ended up, whose Euroformula debut comes to a very early halt, and it looked like there was damage on that car when it was behind the barriers. So clearly race control still not very happy with where it is. Shin continues to lead though, 1.2 seconds, and it was Jose Garfias who took 3/10 out of Shin's lead last time around, and 125.3 for the Mexican. So again, Della Torre leads Kaharczyk into turn number 3, with Pearson in close proximity there as well. Now, is that Yevon David who's got past one of those cars? Yes, he has. But we see the stall there for Alessandro Familaro. And then this is what happened when they got down into turn 4. So it is Della Torre who's going to go wide, and then Yevon David's going to get pushed into the gravel by Jose Garfias. That incident is under investigation by the stewards. Great view of it there, and Diego Della Torre just yielding the lead there, and Everett Stack very nearly followed them both in. Pearson got a real swapper on trying to avoid the back of Stack's car.
Certainly did. Managed to recover though. Decent evasive action there from Pearson. At the same time just managing the car as they now head down and hurtle through towards the final corner at Red Bull Mobile. Now down through towards the start-finish line once again. It is still Michael Shin who continues a second ahead of Jose Garfias. Diego Della Torre did a great job of getting back through past Kaharczyk, didn't he, folks, after losing out on that P3 for a split second coming out of Remus Corner. Had the up and under in offer, and also carried the momentum through with the power of the slipstream, eventually reopening the door on Kaharczyk and regathering himself for P3. Fastest lap here for Yevon David needs to as well, because remember, P6 will mean reverse grid pole for the reversed race that we will have later on in the weekend, as we now watch them come through turn 3 once again. And now down through towards Stoshgold once more. Garfias now inside of a second. In fact, he's 8/10 away from race leader Michael Shin this time around. Kaharczyk once again getting closer to Diego Della Torre, who is now 9/10 back on Garfias. Garfias kicking things up a level. His last lap was a personal best with a 125.185. Actually worked out to be approximately 3.5 tenths between them on that last lap, in fact in the favour of Garfias. So if he continues lapping like this, then Garfias is going to be in a good spot, but now immediately plunging out to 1.1 seconds as they come out of Roche and Berth curve before flying down through towards the right-hander at Rint Corner. It's Shin, Garfias, Della Torre, Kaharczyk, Pearson as well, a second back behind Kaharczyk, and he's getting hassled now by Everett Stack.
wonder if Yevon David can utilise those fresh tyres that he's got on that car to try and usurp Stack. Running closely in towards the first corner. Phil flurries through there. And you see Karcek still hounding the back of Diego Della Torre. It's very close behind them between Pearson, Stack and Yevon David. Let's see if Karcek has another look here. He finds the inside line but can't be late enough on the left foot. Has to follow him out over the crest of the hill onto the back straight there as well, struggling to try and find a way through. And Stack having to defend here against Yevon David, who tried to find the inside line there but realised that there wasn't going to be any space when he got there, and so still sits in behind. Stack straddling the curb, and so doesn't get the best exit in the world. Again hugging the inside as Yevon David pulls to the outside line, finds himself some clean air around there. Absolutely level between them. Stack about half a car length ahead when they turn into turns 7 and 8. Oh, and Yevon David again getting some gravel as he pushed through the right-hander.
The threshold between the circuit and the gravel, especially through that middle sector, is exceptionally thin, folks. And obviously flirting with danger again, Yevon David. And still down in 7th place with work to do to try and overtake Everett Stack. And it's become that much harder now since he's taken a little venture into the gravel once more. Michael Shin with the fastest lap of the race, and now the gap has gone out to 1.5 seconds between Garfius and Shin this time. So now Diego Della Torre becomes a very real obstacle here for Garfius right now, but certainly no less more so for Timet Karcek, who's remained behind him, but within half a second for quite some time. Obviously he needs to try and pull something out of the bag in order to obtain and re-obtain that P3 that he held for a brief moment after making a move at turn 3 on Diego Della Torre a few laps to go now. As they head down through towards Slosh Gold again, Timet Karcek this time much closer on the run down through towards turn 4, looking for an opportunity up the inside, but Diego Della Torre firm to the inside and not giving any opportunity for the pole to move past. So Karcek will have to, well, maintain P4 at least for now.
So as it stands, Michael Shin benefiting the most in the championship here at the front of the field. Title rival Yevon David struggling, and there was a visual demonstration of that fact. Of course, we alluded to the fact, oh, hang on, we've got the onboard camera here from one of the Nielsen cars.
It's like Ed Pearson's, I think.
I'm sure that didn't look like his helmet.
He has the gold trim, doesn't he, I think, on the front end of the car.
They've all got the gold trim now.
They've changed them all back.
Yeah, they've changed it back because it's not like they're LMP2 cars anymore, sadly. So I think that might have been Francisco Soldavini, potentially. Yeah, it must have been because obviously Baptista's in the wall.
Yeah.
So I think that was Francisco Soldavini who's got the onboard camera this weekend, and potentially that was him being passed by Alessandro Famularo. So we got there in the end. Karcek again having a look on the inside for 3rd position, but still he cannot find a way through. So it's Motor Park 1, 2, 3 as it stands. Take a peek inside. Timo Rumpkeil. We saw just on the right-hand side, the team boss of Motor Park, having just finished up running the GT3 team in the International GT Open race, turning his attention to the youngsters behind the wheel of his Dallara 324s.
Of course, now Karcek having another look at the inside of Diego Della Torre, once again unsuccessful. Of course, Levente Reves was racing for Motor Park in the International GT Open as well. Many of you will remember him as an alumni of this very series of the past, obviously racing a couple of years ago now, and it was really blossomed since moving into GT3, partnering Maxi Goertz in the International GT Open, and also Matteo Cairoli for selected races this season, as now we watch them head down through the final corner once again here at this circuit that we've raced at now ever since 2015 of the realm. In fact, 2014 was the first race, Sandy Stuvik winning here, and well, winning the championship in actual fact, but former times, in fact we had no race in 2014, I was right the first time, it was 2015. Vitor Baptista was pole, of course Polcini, Leonardo Polcini that is, winner in race 1, Vitor Baptista winning in race 2. Another look here from Karcek, a look at the inside but unsuccessful on Diego Della Torre, small gap then to Ed Pearson then in fifth, who's trying to hold up Everett Stack with Yevon David still there as well. Michael Shin still with the fastest lap of the race thus far. But that was a little bit of time ago now as Kaharczyk once again has a look around the outside. Obviously, Diego Della Torre has kept to that same line, frustrating the pole down through towards Slosh Gold on every single occasion. So he might have to try the unorthodox here to make Kaharczyk to make this work. Goes around the outside. Obviously, very rarely works out unless you've got enough momentum and leverage on the outside to ferry your way through around the outside. So he will have to wait a little longer, but can't afford to wait too long because it's only going to increase the gap between Diego Della Torre and Jose Garfias.
That being said, the gap in front of them and the gap behind them is pretty stable. It's about 0.8 of a second between Garfias and Della Torre, and about 1.5 to Pearson behind them. Now Kaharczyk's got to run on the inside towards the Lauda corner. All side by side. It's very difficult through there, and Della Torre has to take to the escape road. And I'm sure Kaharczyk will be straight on the radio saying he stayed ahead of me by going off the track.
Yeah, that could be looked at in the stewards room. We'll keep you updated, folks, as to whether anything is raised on our screens here. Another little look here from Everett Stack here on Ed Pearson, and he might have found the answer this time because Pearson went very wide coming through Rima's corner, and if anything now the slipstream could prevail here for Everett Stack as they race down through towards Slosh Gold at turn 4. Pearson now favouring that inside, almost similar to what we saw from Diego Della Torre over the last few occasions where he's gone toe-to-toe with Timoš Kaharczyk, but Pearson holding on, well, certainly gamefully, and now this has allowed Yevon David to encroach back to the rear of Everett Stack this time. Once again, dances to the outside, trying to unseat the American, but Everett Stack very smart to it and remains right now in P6.
See, Pearson knows that if he loses a place to Stack, he's at a big risk of losing a place to Yevon David as well. And if he does lose a place to both of them, then he won't be benefiting from the reverse grid tomorrow. This is what happened into turn 1 between Kaharczyk and Della Torre. I think there was contact there between them. Well, for lack of trying, though. It was very, very close, wasn't it, between the front wing and the rear tyres of Della Torre, but the Mexican taking to the escape road. Might be 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Of course, if the Formula 1 rules were to apply, then it would have been Della Torre's corner, and he can do whatever we want. But that's why majority of series don't use those rules. It is side by side now between them once again. Kaharczyk to the outside line, a bit further alongside this time. Doesn't go around the outside, tries the up and under again. Closes up when they get on the power. And with the slipstream again down this back straight. Now he's got the clean air right in front of him. It's going to be a big, bold braking move down the outside, and actually the skid block going up against the curbing there, side by side between Pearson and Stack. Pearson into the gravel trap, and he definitely won't be benefiting from the reverse grid now as it stands. Yeah,
no, that's going to be inherited now, P6 to Yevon David. So if we're talking about reverse grid, it'll be Yevon David on pole position. Della Torre, of course, still holding on to that third spot ahead of Kaharczyk right now, but Kaharczyk still there, giving him quite the headache up at the very top. Really unfortunate there for Pearson. Now as Kaharczyk has a look up the inside again, still can't quite find the avenue here this time, and we've got a warning for car 9. That's Everett Stack over track limits. Here's the moment again, coming down in towards Slosh Gold. Side by side they went. Of course, it was Ed Pearson into the gravel in the incident involving cars 3 and 44 noted. That's Diego Della Torre and Timoš Kaharczyk.
And also Jose Garfias getting away with a reprimand for what happened on the first lap between himself and Yevon David, where David went through the gravel. So Garfias getting away with that. And I'm sure that the moment between Pearson and Stack is going to be looked at as well.
Absolutely. Turn 3 now. They meet again. Garfias obviously still maintaining P2, able to hold back Della Torre. And Kaharczyk, though, still very much the thorn in the side for Della Torre. I think the Mexican has got certainly other things on his mind, the pole being the prevalent one of them. Yevon David on the tail of Everett Stack still, as he was before. And we got a spinner there for Viscerano, who now goes off the circuit, of course, in the familiar livery that is usually donned by Fernando Barrichello.
I'm sure that FIFA is looking at that, going, don't damage my car.
Well,
I need it in 2 weeks.
Well, of course, he went on to victory in a motor park car last year at this very circuit in race 2. Of course, race 2 here will be coming up tomorrow, as now we see Kaharchik now looking for the inside. Now, usually, you'd figure him out successful this time, going wide. Diego Della Torre opening the door, and surely that will not be contested. Great move there for Kaharchik to obviously follow his line, taking full advantage of Diego Della Torre's moment. So now the pole moves into 3rd place, and surely his mindset has to be firmly on Jose Garfias. Diego Della Torre just having a huge swapper coming through Rink Corner and coming out of Red Bull Mobile Curve. It allowed Kaharchik to just swan on through and into 3rd place finally.
Finally been staring at the back of that car for about 12 laps, hasn't he? So great stuff. Kaharchik up into 3rd, minimising the points lost to Michael Shin as a result of it. That incident between Everett Stack and Ed Pearson has indeed been noted by the stewards, so they may well take a look at that. Meanwhile, Michael Shin, 4.5 seconds to the good. He's just pervious up at the front of the field, and so now the question seems to be between Everett Stack and Yevon David, who's going to be taking home an extra couple of points today, who's going to be starting on reverse grid pole tomorrow, because this is the battle for 5th and 6th.
Yeah, Michael Shin actually lapping 3 to 4 tenths faster a lap than Jose Garfias so far. In fact, on this particular lap, it was, on the last lap, I should say, 3 and just under half tenths quicker than Garfias, leading to that 4.7 second gap that we're currently seeing. Of course, that will expand even further as this continues. Yevon David with another little look on Everett Stack, who continues to frustrate the young Sri Lankan, who will be on the F3 grid next season, the FIA Formula 3 Championship. And now looking to ferry his way up through towards turn 1, looking to find the answer here on Everett Stack as they come through turn 1 at Nicky Lauda curving now, feathering the throttle, very rough over the curbing, but now returns back onto the circuit. That did upset his momentum ever so slightly, but climbing the hill, you never know if you can get the slipstream and a good run out of turn 3. It could make all the difference coming up through towards turn 4. Now let's see how he performs on the brakes now, dialing it into the inside. Wants to keep it nice and smooth, really, a little bit of wheel play. We'll take a look at the replay of said moment, just to swap us sideways coming through turn 1, the rear end sticking out on the Sri Lankan's car, but Yevon David poised straight away, but still remains behind Stack.
Yeah, so Yevon does have, started the race with new tyres, whereas Everett Stack used one of his qualifying sets. Of course, hoping that he'll have a good grid position in one of the races tomorrow to use his 2 new sets for.
We'll say, though, Yevon David's tyres, whether they were new, might have been slightly undermined with the trips into the gravel as well at the same time. So that
little bit, and they're overheating a little bit in that dirty air, because he's been stuck behind quite a few cars for a while there, to be honest. Of course, Everett Stack hoping to continue in the Euroformula next year. Very confident in doing so. Oh, that was wide there for Diego Della Torre. Not his first visit to that particular runoff area. Hopefully his last.
Wants to see all of Austria, clearly.
Clearly.
Coming through turn 1, his teammates, Everett Stack, starting to loom closer at the moment as they climb uphill, and now it's become a 3-car motor park affair over P4 this time around, and Everett Stack has been given a glimmer of hope here. There's Ed Pearson, who was trying to gamefully close on the back of Yevon David. It's 2.9 between those two at the moment, so work to do here for Ed Pearson. But taking a look at the last lap, it was a 1:25.6. He was, of course, around half a tenth quicker over the last lap. Yevon David now 8 tenths back on Everett Stack, who is now very keen to try and dislodge Diego Della Torre to try and achieve yet another 4th place this season, as they now look to make their way through the double left-handers at Rochenberth curve. There is Jose Garfias with Timothy Kaharchik half a second behind now, as the battle for P2 will very soon start to erupt. BVM looking to at least put their car higher up in the places, but if it continues like this, essentially Kaharchik almost looking to finish where he very nearly started.
Yeah, of course, it was Della Torre with that lightning
huge
start,
getaway,
wasn't it? Absolutely monstrous. Seems like an eon ago now, doesn't it?
I thought for a split second he jumped the start, to be honest with you.
It almost did look like it, didn't it? But Kaharchik really closing in on Jose Garfias, who did briefly lead this race, with Michael Shin 5 seconds to the good now. It's game on for 2nd place. So rising up the hill again. We saw how long it took him to get around Diego Della Torre. Be hoping to have a little bit less trouble with Jose Garfias, who defends towards the inside at turn 3. And Karchek not pulling alongside under brakes, but gets the up and under in a very similar fashion to how he tried to get around De La Tour earlier on in the race, soaking up that slipstream, opening up the taps on the Tom's Prepared engine. Now side by side again, the skid block just chirping over the curbing on the outside of the braking zone for turn 4, and it is Garfias who stays ahead.
Yeah, Garfias doing well to mitigate the Karachik challenge. So this P2 battle is far from over, because we do, of course, have approximately 15 laps left in this race. Let's take a look at Michael Shin. 5 laps, sorry, I might have said 15. We've actually concluded 15 laps as a whole. So other way around, George.
I'm not used to the counting down thing as well.
We do things a little bit differently in terms of lap counting here, but 15 laps recorded. It'll soon become 16 though, because Michael Shin has just crossed the line, and it's 5 seconds between Garfias and Shin right now, 4 tenths between Karachik and Garfias. That has come straight down, and obviously with the clear air, Karachik able to gamefully catch up, and obviously Yevon David now behind Stack by 1.2 seconds. Stack now becoming a very real threat for Diego De La Torre, as now Karachik starts to loom closer to the back of Jose Garfias in a battle over P2. Garfias to the inside, tries to defend the place. Karachik around the outside takes the longer route, and of course does suffer a little bit on the escape. He'll need to try and get back to within that slipstream, try and get the drag on the run down through towards Slosh Gold. I wonder whether he can get close enough prior to the apex of the corner. Inside line slightly there from Garfias. Karachik trying to guess where he might go, as they now look to the outside as Karachik in the BVM, but unfortunately no avenue. Garfias managed that well.
He certainly did. And well, will he manage this well? Because Karachek's got the inside line. That hasn't really worked for him so far in this race. He really can carry some speed around the outside there, and that's worked for Garfias on this occasion. Coming up to only 3 more laps remaining when they go across the stripe, which will be in a couple of corners' time. And Karachek starting to run out of opportunities to try and take second place away. Of course, one wonders what would have happened had he started on pole position. Fastest in the 2 free practice sessions and fastest in qualifying, but then, of course, serving that penalty because he did come here with a slight advantage after those 2 test days here 2 months ago. But that will be the sole penalty he faces. Oh, big snap of oversteer for the Polish driver as he came out of turn 1, trying to get the power down. Doesn't seem to have compromised him too terribly much. Still getting a great slipstream from Garfias. They rise up the hill once again. Garfias defending incredibly hard. Karachek tried to find some space on the inside. There wasn't any. And so again is forced to do the up and under. This looks like a slightly better run this time. Down the back straight. Again, Garfias just hugs it to the inside. And so Karachek is forced the long way round. Who's the bravest on the brakes? It's Garfias once again. Doesn't run out too wide, although Karachek does manage to get a better exit. And just everywhere Karachek wants to be, Garfias has already placed that car.
Yeah, he puts a stopper at every single point through the course of that run through Slosh Gold, and essentially kept it pinned. And there Karachek licking the gravel coming through Rochenberth curve, and that will not help him at this late stage. And obviously with 3 laps to go, it really does put the pressure on a little bit now. The pole has got to do something if he wants P2 here. Obviously sights an opportunity here to at least grow the gap to Yevon David. Of course, Michael Shin with a great chance now to essentially lift himself higher than Yevon David in the championship. Of course, by all intents and purposes, this will push Yevon David down into 3rd in the championship, as we now watch them come through the first corner once again. And it will be Shin, Garfias, Karachik at this stage. Fastest lap still in the hands for Michael Shin. Dare I say, it'll be the first time he's recorded a fastest lap since earlier on. This is the moment for the Nielsen Racing car of...
That's Soldavini, isn't it?
Soldavini, yes, into the gravel. And not a great venture at all. You don't want to find yourself in there too much. We've seen that a few times already through the course of this race as they come out of turn 3 now. And once again, Garfias is going to have his wits about him, because here comes Karachik now, side by side. This time he's going to try and keep it clinical, as now I'm sure Garfias is going to go late on the brakes, just as he did the time before. A slight lock up there in the rear there for Karachik as they now come out to the apex of the corner. This time he might have a run here around the outside, coming through towards Rochenberth curve, and indeed keeps it pinned. Does he challenge? No, Garfias shutting the door again straight away. A fantastic defensive display here from young Garfias.
Yeah, it's been extraordinary. And of course, celebrating 1 year in Euroformula Open now as Garfias alongside Ed Pearson. We'll remember that sensational debut pole for Garfias a year ago as well, and how gutted we were. They had his tyre sliced before they even got to the first corner. So, or was it suspension? I forget, I have to go and watch it back. But yeah, dramas before they even got to the first corner, and certainly Garfias another contender to make it onto the FIA Formula 3 grid next year. One more lap to go. Michael Shin leads by 6.1 now. The question is, what order are the drivers in second and third going to be standing on the podium? Giuseppe Mazzotti watching on very intensely as he watches his man try and take second place away from the motor park driver, side by side again. Great speed this time from Gahacek. He's actually ahead. Now Garfias is going to have to be braver on the brakes, and he is, so he gets back on the inside. Gahacek was very briefly in second place there. He was ahead at the timing line, and slightly different lines again being used on the exit, but again Garfias will hold the advantage in terms of the racing line when they get down to the braking zone. And again, braver on the brakes there for Garfias. Gahacek was about half a car length ahead, but the deft touch on the left foot there for the Mexican. And if he keeps this up, he might well just have this sorted out.
Covered off, though, by Garfias. Great move indeed up the inside, coming through Rochenwerth, and manages to hold position, hold station in second. Wonderful from the Mexican driver. But now all eyes peel to the front, because Michael Shin, after his first retirement of the season, back at Paul Ricard in the opening race, it was doom and gloom at there. He recovered to P2 for race 2, but now back on top once more, and will move into surely second in the championship with this one, and now ahead of Yevon David in that rostrum. It will be Jose Garfias after a gallant defensive display in second, with Timet Gahacek in third position also. Diego Della Torre doing a great job to take fourth ahead of Everett Stack, who kept Yevon David at bay, and Ed Pearson down in seventh, Famolaro across the line in eighth. But it's Michael Shin back on the top step once again for the first time since race 2 at Hungaroring. He also took the fastest lap back then as well. A wonderful display, and once again with the fastest lap and victory, this time in race 1 here at Red Bull Ring.
Cracking stuff from Michael Shin. Once he got the lead, just ran away with it, didn't he? Did have to fight for it on that opening lap. Brilliant stuff. Once again, 7.2 clear of Garfias and Gahacek in the end. Absolutely dominant performance. Michael moving closer to the championship, of course, taking 11 points out of Timek there.
Certainly did. Michael Shin finishing first place once again this season. Team Motor Park, of course, will benefit off that in the team's championship that they're currently dominating so far. Jose Garfias making it Motor Park 1-2 ahead of Timet Gahacek and BVM Racing. Diego Della Torre in fourth, ahead of Everett Stack in fifth. Yevon David, who just could not quite find the answer several occasions into the gravel trap. That upset his race, that's for sure. Ed Pearson also having his own gravel visitations, ahead of Alessandro Famolaro, the second BBM car, down in 8th place, ahead of Luca Visorano down in 9th spot. Francisco Soldovini of Nielsen down in P10. We also have P11, Paolo Branchnik for the gold class. Carly Baptista, of course, a retiree after an early issue through the course of the race that saw his car out of the race. But we can now see Michael Shin celebrating as he makes his way down through Rint Corner, and he will of course come into the pits in his Team Motor Park Dallara 324. A welcome return to the front end for him, I'm sure. Of course, recording now his third race win of the season, a trio to mark his campaign. He's now one behind Timet Gahacek and Yevon David, and level with Jose Garfias as well. But one thing I will say, he has been pretty consistent in terms of obtaining the podiums as well. Of course, 5 second places. No one has even touched that number at all. I mean, no one's standing on 3, neither is anyone standing on 4. Though I will say that is technically a bit because, well, I've been saying that Jose Garfias now recording his second place finish, and it's a third place finish for Timet Gahacek.
It's a great way for Michael Shin to kick off this second part of the season straight after the summer break, and of course bouncing back from a very disappointing Paul Ricard as well. We saw in the highlights the contact, the front wing falling off as well. And what is that he's pulled out of his pocket? He's always got some unique celebrations there, but well, I'm not sure what that was.
He's
So
clearly
something he keeps on him during racing, obviously.
yeah, obviously giving that one in tribute to somebody else by the looks of it. And a very proud moment, I'm sure, for Michael Shin. Race win number 3, and all smiles on the face of the Korean. And he'll go and celebrate with the rest of the Motor Park clan. And obviously all smiles on that account. Obviously with the double podium, a 1-2 really does levy further points in their favour. Of course, they came into this round of the championship 3 away from 2 centuries of points. Obviously closing in on the 200, they were only 3 points off that. They've now surpassed it with BVM now further and further behind them. Nielsen Racing, of course, 3rd in the Provisional Teams Championship classification. But Michael Shin celebrating, like we said, 3rd race win. Pirelli cap in hand.
Alfredo won the money there, isn't he?
Well done, sharp. And on the button from Alfredo Filipponi as Michael Shin continues to celebrate this brilliant race win. We'll see whether this can continue right through. Of course, it is going to be quite tricky for him for the the reverse race situation, because he'll be starting from 6th place in that one. And of course, for the qualifying, I'd imagine he'll be starting in the 5th, 6th positions as well. But we'll go through the top 3, and it's Timur Karchik after a gallant effort. Obviously 3rd place this time, would have hoped probably for more had the race gone his way. Jose Garfias, a fantastic performance from the young Mexican, finishing in 2nd spot. We then, of course, have Michael Shin, though, back on top for the 3rd time this campaign, recovering after the retirement back at Paul Ricard. And he's
Michael
with Alfredo.
Shin, winner at Red Bull Ring Race 1. A perfect race for you.
Yeah, well, the start was actually quite bad. I got overtaken by Diego, who had an excellent start. We fought into turn 3, and then in turn 4, I was able to get the switchback, and from there, maintain the lead.
And this is a very good, useful success for you towards the championship.
Yeah, after Paul Ricard, where we had practically no scores, I think this is very important. You know, I'm so thankful to the team. They gave me a great car for this, and I think the hard work we've been putting in is starting to show.
And the rest of the weekend, how you see it?
Well, we're starting P6 and P5 tomorrow, so we're going to try and overtake as much as possible.
Well done for now, and enjoy the moment.
Thank you very much.
So highlights from race 1 here at Red Bull Ring, and it was a brilliant start, wasn't it, from Diego Della Torre, leaping off the line, immediately sending his car to the front of the rostrum and surpassing, of course, eventual winner Michael Shin, who would remain in 2nd place. A little moment there for the Motorpark car further back, of course, belonging to Jose Garfias, just taking a little bit of a skip through the curbing, remaining, though, behind Yevon David in the initial. Of course, they came toe-to-toe on the run down through towards turn 4. There were 2 battles occurring through this point, eventually into the gravel went Diego Della Torre, and also we saw Yevon David dropping into the gravel as well, which really upset the balance of his race. Jose Garfias would eventually come toe-to-toe as well later on. Diego Della Torre losing yet more places, this time to Timur Karchik, who managed to launch his way up into 3rd, and the race would continue. This time Michael Shin pulling out a non-stop run through this lead of the race. Eventually it climbed to 7.2 seconds, and he took the checkered flag to take a brilliant 3rd win of the season, and of course dedicating it as well. But the Drivers' Championship now looks something like this. Michael Shin has indeed leaped into 2nd. He's now only 8 points behind Timur Karchik, our current championship leader, who stands now on 246. Yevon David, after that race, now 25 points back on 221, and he's 10 points ahead of Jose Garfias, who could now be a real thorn in his side come the rest of this season. Ed Pearson down in 5th, had a pretty difficult run today with his own trips into the gravel. But now we take to the podium celebrations. It is, of course, going to be Karchik in the 3rd step. We're going to have Garfias on the 2nd step, with Michael Shin on the 1st step as well. Of course, the Motorpark representative taking the step for the team's trophy. And fantastic effort on their part. And of course, it will be Everett Stack, the winning rookie, Chris.
Yep, odd to not see Yevon on there, but of course, Paolo Brajnik as well. Here's the South Korean national anthem. Born in Seoul, but grew up and went to school in Hawaii, I found out today, did Michael Shin. Lived a very varied life.
In amongst the
he
palm
has.
trees, which is not a bad way to live at all. Incidentally, today also, along with the win, levels up the number of race fastest laps with Tim McGarchick for the season. They both now stand on 6. With that, obviously, Michael Shin coming into this round with 5 against his name so far. Obviously, that race today, leaping him up to 6 of the numbers. And I'm sure we'll be delighted with the points now. Really throws him right into the mixer with Tim McGarchick. Well and truly this time. He will, of course, lift the winning trophy aloft with Jose Garfis and Tim McGarchick stood beside him too. But a long road still ahead now in terms of closing out the championship. Remember, we still have 2 trips to come with Barcelona and Monza. We do, of course, have 2 more races to bring you tomorrow. Motor Park celebrating yet more single-seater success here in the Euroformula Open Championship. They, of course, have dominated this series now over the last 2 years. You can make that, of course, 5 years if we also include Crypto Tower Racing. That was closely aligned with the team as well. In fact, more than that, 6 years, because, of course, they won it in 2019 as well. Before that, RP Motorsport won it twice, Campos Racing in 2016, and then RP Motorsport back on top in 2014, and, of course, 15. But great legacies are certainly lie in wait, and we've seen many great champions come through this series. We look forward to discovering who ours is going to be in 2025. And the champagne will now be sprayed to end Saturday, with Sunday to look forward to tomorrow, as we will too, folks. We hope you've all enjoyed the show. We will, of course, see you back again tomorrow for race 2 and race 3. But from all of us here in Styria, it's goodbye.